Good afternoon, grade 12s. Welcome back to our business studies. Welcome back, guys, for the longest break that we have took so far as African Teen Geek. We wish you the best of term 3, guys, as we came back with a vibe as usual. My name is Hector S. Nkosi. I'll be taking you for business studies for the rest of the year. I'm sure some of you have just joined today, guys. Welcome to those who have just joined today. For those who have already been part of the program, welcome back again, you guys. It's nice to have you again. So, guys, today it's our lesson 1. And in our lesson 1, we'll be looking at the business sectors and their environments. So let's look at the learning outcomes, basically, for this chapter. Immediately after this chapter, you need to be able to name 3 types of business sectors: your primary, secondary, and tertiary. You also need to be able to identify or name a business sector from a given scenarios or statement. So basically, we'll deal with the types of your business sectors, like your primary sector, your secondary sector, and your tertiary sector. So you need to know what type of the business do you get under primary, what type of the business do you get under secondary, what type of business do you also get under tertiary. Then you also need to identify name of a sector from a given scenario. So in an exam type question, what they will do, they'll give you a small scenario of which tomorrow we'll be looking at the scenarios so that I can show you step by step. So in an exam, they'll give you scenarios, right? So when they give you scenario, they'll give you like a paragraph or so, or cartoon or whatever. And then they will say to you, identify on what type of the business is this. Then from that scenario, you need to know that what type of the business it is, basically. So maybe I'll show you when we start actually with the actual questions. You also need to be able to identify business challenges from given scenarios or case studies and classify them according to the 3 business environments. So basically now, in that business, in that scenario, you need to be able to also identify the challenge. Meaning when we speak about the challenge, we speak about what we are facing or what is the business or the sector is facing so far, basically, right? So now you need to say, well, maybe this business faces this, and how do we have to deal with it? Then you need to state or explain the extent to which a business operates. Yes, the extent. Basically, this is the extent. Okay, it says state or explain in the extent to which a business operates in any of the 3 sectors can control the 3 business environments from given scenarios and case studies. So basically, in this chapter, guys, you'll be asked in terms of a scenario or case study, basically. Now, if we look at what we're going to cover today we'll be looking at the terms and definitions, the types of business sectors, the possible business challenges, and the environment and extent control. Meaning now, at what environment are these business at, and at what extent we can control these business, basically. So for now, we'll start with our terms and definitions, basically. Now, under this chapter, you need to know the following terms, because these terms, you'll be learning with them now and then, right? Right? So these terms, guys, are very important, right? So you need to know these terms because you'll be asked them now and then in an exam. So a business sector, we know that a business sector is a subdivision or subset of the economic activities, basically, right? So under the business sector, you've got three types of sectors. You've got your primary sector, your secondary sector, and your tertiary sector. Now, with your primary sector, this sector deals with an extraction of raw materials and natural resources. So your primary sector, basically, we look at raw material. Remember, raw material, it's one of those things that we need. They help us to convert them to a final product, basically. Now, who can give me an example of raw materials and natural resources? We know when we talk about natural resources, we talk about air, water, tree, right? Whereas your raw material, basically, let's say you want to produce a certain product. For example, let's make um, an example of a sanitizer since we are facing corona, right? Let's say you want to produce plastic bottles of sanitizer, right? So in those plastic bottles of sanitizer, you need to be able to identify your raw materials. Do you agree with me? Your raw materials in a bottle of a sanitizer, it will be a plastic because you need a plastic, right? You need to manufacture it in order to make a plastic bottle. So your raw material will be a plastic, right? And your natural resources will be water, basically, because you need water in order to mix your plastic in order to make a bottle of a sanitizer so that you can get your final product. Then, when we look at our secondary sector, this sector processes raw material into finished goods. So basically, your secondary sector, we're looking at your manufacturing sector, meaning now this is the sector that helps us to produce goods from raw material into a final product. Let's say now we are producing cold drinks, right? Since we are producing cold drinks, we need to manufacture the cold drink. We need to mix the acid and the certain ingredients. Does it make sense? And we also need to manufacture the bottles and the cans so that we can have a final product. Then when you look at your tertiary sector, this sector basically renders a service to other business or providers. So basically, with the tertiary sector, we're looking at your supermarkets now. Now it's when here they sell to the consumers or to the customers, basically. That's your tertiary sector. So guys, at this point, you need to know the primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. And you need to know how these three different sectors, they link from each other. Also, in a scenario, you need to be able also to know what sector is the business involved. Like, for example, if I were to give you a scenario and say to you, Mr. Nkosi is in a process of manufacturing mattresses, and each mattress will cost 10,000 rands. Then the first question can ask you, what type of a sector is Mr. Nkosi operating? You need to say, actually, Mr. Nkosi is under the secondary sector because he is still manufacturing raw material in order to make it a finished goods. Right. Then now you should know your three different types of sectors. Now let's look at the business environments. Now with your business environments, all the internal and external factors that affect the functioning of business, basically, right? So we're looking at the internal and external factors that affects the functioning of the business, right? So we need to check that internally, what affects our business, right? Let's say the workers are slow. Um, let's say the machines are not working faster. That's an internal problem, or that's an internal factor, basically, right? But when we look at the external factor, we're looking at the things that affects the business, but they are not within the business. So basically, those are external factors. We can make an example of your load shedding. It can be an external factor because now no one planned it to happen within the factory. And also, the factory or the business or whatever, it does not have a control of it, basically. So that will be regarded as your external factors. I hope it makes sense. Welcome to those who have just joined us. I can see Sonia. Welcome to our class. All right. Now, let's look at our microenvironment. Now, with your microenvironment now, boys and girls, this environment is the business itself. It consists of all the elements. We're still going to go into detail when it comes to microenvironment. Then your market environment. Now, this is the environment that exists immediately outside the business, right? So because we know that market, it's outside the business, whereas micro, it's the business itself, basically, right? Then your macro, right? So there's a difference between micro and macro. So your macro, this is the environment exists outside the micro and the market environment. So it's outside the micro. So macro, it should be outside the micro and outside the market environment. Then extent of control. Now, when we look at the extent of control, sorry about that. When you look at the extent of control, we're looking at the amount of influence that a business has on the business, basically. What influence that the business has on the business, right? So that's where we see control, right? That's where controls comes in. Remember, guys, the control has to do with power. You can't control if you don't have power. So basically, when we look at the extent of control, that's why we say it is the amount of influence that the business has on a business. Right. So guys, by the end of this chapter, right, you need to familiarize yourself with these terms and definitions because they're going to help you a lot. You'll see when we start our revision for prelims, we know that prelims are around the corner and we'll be prepping for prelims. I'll be taking you through things that you need to know and stuff like that. Right. Let's carry on. Now, with your business sectors, you need to know the types of business sectors. So business sectors are subdivisions or subsets of economic activities, e.g. primary, secondary, and tertiary. So now we're going into detail about these types of business sectors. So we're going to start with our primary sector. Remember our primary sector, we said that's where we get our raw materials, basically. So basically, with your primary sector, this is a sector that deals with an extraction of raw materials and natural resources. So that's where we get the raw materials and your natural resources. Your natural resources which are not man-made, like coal, your gold, your fish, and livestock are extracted from this sector. So bear in mind that these natural resources, they should not be the ones that are man-made, right? So which means the natural resources that you're going to get here are your mine, fishing, agriculture, forestry, and farming. So the examples, the primary sector industry is mining, fishing, agriculture, forest, and farming, basically, right? Those are your primary sector examples. Now, we need to look at our secondary sector. With our secondary sector now, it says this business sector is responsible for changing the raw materials acquired from the primary sector into a useful product. So here it's when we are changing from a raw material to a main product, basically. And also we need to know that it includes the manufacturing factories, it includes your construction and energy generation. Then also the example of your secondary sector industries, it will be manufacturing, clothing, food processing, building, and constructions are found in this sector. Okay, I hope everyone is well so far, and everyone, I'm hoping they are following so far, basically. Right. Now, let's look at your tertiary sector. With your tertiary sector, remember when I was explaining the concept, I said to you, your tertiary sector basically, it's when now we have the final product and we are selling that final product to external parties, like your consumers, your third parties, your buyers basically. So this sector renders service to the public and businesses, right? So now it's when I've got finished products or final products now that I've received from my secondary sector, I have to use it in the tertiary sector in order to gain a profit. Obviously, whatever I'm going to sell or to render, I must render it at a cost plus markup. We know what is a markup. Markup is a profit. So it includes service from transport, banking, legal, and health, right? So basically, let's make an example for transport. For transport, the raw material, it can be steel. We know that we use steel in order to make a car or a train, a taxi, a bus. We use a steel. Then now that steel, we need to transform it to a certain transportation. It can be a car, a bus, or whatever. Now, meanwhile, we are manufacturing that car or a bus or that taxi or that bike, whatever. We are under secondary sector. Then once that car has been finalized, or that taxi has been finalized, or that bus has been finalized, or that train has been finalized, now they will start making profit, or they'll start to render a service by transporting people to their destinations, basically, desired destinations. So basically, we know that's where they'll be making money, where their product will be regarded as transport in terms of that. There are so many, guys. There are so many things. Also, we need to look at the examples of the tertiary sector, industries, distributions, banking, insurance, tourism, transportations, entertainment, retail, and legal services. Now, you must be able to name above mentioned business sector from the given scenario or statements. So guys, sometimes I'll give you a scenario, sometimes I'll give you a statement and say, identify what type of a business sector it is. And you need to know their challenges and you need to know how to control them. But however, don't worry, for now, I am still going to show you how to do those things basically, right? So tomorrow we'll be looking at the scenarios, different scenarios with different business sectors. Therefore, you'll be able to detect or see on what type of the business sector it is or you are facing at that point in time. Okay, perfect. Now, I want us to look at the possible, I want us to look at the possible business challenges, their environments, and extent of control. So we want to know that in each and every business, what might be some of the challenges that the business might face, and what type of environment they are at, and what extent of control can we also check on those. Right. Now, the possible challenges. So basically here, we know that when it comes to this challenge, it is difficult employees or high rate of absenteeism, basically, right? And also, we must look at your lack of vision and mission. We know vision, it's where you want to see yourself in the nearest future. Lack of adequate management skills, unions strike, and go slows. So basically here, remember this is your primary sector. So these are the possible challenges under primary sector. Then the type of the business environment is the micro environment, basically, right? Because it's within the business itself. And yes, they've got the full control, guys, because that's where they extract raw materials, basically. Because now, why are we saying they've got the full control? Because now their resources are limited, you know. If let's say I've got a forest, I'm owning a forest, and while I'm owning a forest, I can plant how many trees that I want so that I can sell that wood to the secondary sector. So this first block has to do with primary sector. This one is your secondary sector, and that one is your tertiary sector. Okay, now let's look at the secondary sector. We must look at competition because now the very same manufacturing, you might find out that other people are doing it, right? The shortage of supply. Where are we getting our shortage of supply? From our primary sector, right? The demographics and psychographics, right? Your socio-cultural factors also affect. These are the possible challenges that the secondary sector might face, right? So we know that because here we are selling to lots of businesses and clients, this will be regarded as a market environment, right? So the control here, it's partially, or we can say it's being semi-controlled, or we can say some or less controlled, basically. So you can't control this one fully because you've got a competition, basically, right? So you can't control a competition. You can, but you can't in some instances, basically. Now, when we look at our tertiary sector, what possible challenges one might face under tertiary sector? The change in income levels, right? What income levels? Let's say now I'm used to buy groceries at a certain supermarket, but let's say because of what I'm earning right now, it's not the same on what I'm going to earn at the end of the month. Therefore, that's going to be a change in income level. So that might be a challenge for a consumer not to buy whatever products that they desired for under secondary sector. Then under tertiary sector, also you must look at your contemporary legislation, your labor restrictions, political changes, interest rates, they might lead under this, your socio-economic issues, HIV and AIDS, or any other chronic diseases, your globalization and international challenges, basically. Now, and we need to know that what type of an environment it is. This is a macro environment. And here there is no control. You can't control here at all. So remember, here it's fully controlled. Here it's semi-controlled or partially in control. But under this sector, there is no control at all. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Now, the things that you must note is you'll only be able to do the following. So now I'm showing you the exam technique. You need to know how to quote business challenges from the scenario, basically, right? So if I were to give you a scenario, you need to state what challenges that business they are facing. You need to classify these challenges according to the business environments. So know the challenges and classify them according to their environments. The challenge must be linked to the business environment. That's very important, guys. As you see here, right? Each challenge is being linked to a business environment and its extent of control. The challenge, okay, I read that one. State the extent of control business have over each business environment. That's also important. That's what I've just showed you right now. Also, the extent of control must be linked to the business environment, right? So you must work vice versa. So you need to know how to link the extent of control with the business environment. Also, you need to know how to link the business environment with the external control. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks for tuning in. I hope to see you again, guys, tomorrow. Remember, grade 12s, we are only left with few months. We are only left with few months in order for us to claim what belongs to us. Remember, your grade 12 certificate, it's your first academic certificate. It's going to determine your life. It's going to tell you where you want to be in the next 5 years or in the next 3 years even, in the next 2 years or next 6 months, basically. From my side, Mr. Nkosi, I wish you all the best. And please study hard, guys. If you've got any questions, any clarity, please feel free to email me at nkosihector28@gmail.com. I'm here to help you, boys and girls, and have a lovely evening. Goodbye.